Mr. Huber,
Yes, sir.
somewhere past this kind of independent experimentation phase that we're in right now, where you have like your State of Decays, your Fortnites, your forests, your Minecrafts, in a sense. I mean, it's not like the point of Minecraft. I feel like in 5 or 6 years, we're going to get a game that these games have spawned that's going to be my favorite game ever created, because I'm all about this whole survival aspect. I remember there's even like a DS game that was like About the Blue or something, where you're like lost on an island and you had to go running around and pick up twigs and build stuff. Like, it seems like very boring. It's a situation none of us would ever want to be on a plane that crashed in the middle of the forest where we're surrounded by demons and we have to like, build like a hutch out of twigs. And yet in games, like, I'm completely entranced. Like, what is that? It's a weird psychological thing. How is the forest?
The forest is a little rough. It's alpha. So we're in version 0.03. So it is really early, but a lot of the systems are in place, and like, give this game a little more time and it's going to be incredible. It's already incredible, and you can tell it is early in the development. So yeah, you crash land, and then the most disturbing part is you wake up on the plane like after it crashes, and this tribal apocalypto guy is there, and he's just like staring at you, and then he like picks up your son and walks away, and then the game starts. So it's like, doesn't give you any objectives, no mission markers. Your tutorial is like your little survival book, like how to build things. So you kind of just make whatever you make of it whatever you want. It's like, well, obviously, I want to try to find my son.
Yeah.
But, you don't know where to look. You don't even know how to get there. So it's just really intense. Like, you'll be just, chopping down your trees, picking up leaves, chopping a bunny up, cooking it. And then you'll like look to your right, and some tribal guy will just be standing there staring you down. It's like, what is going on? And it's cool because it's different every time. Like, the very first time I played, I went to the ocean, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try to, like, get around water. It's like your survival instincts kick in. It's like, all right, I want to build shelter against the water, have my back to a cliff, so nothing can, like, flank me or get around me. So I'm like, go out to this little island, and I'm just like, night comes. I'm like shivering in the cold. And all of a sudden, just across on the beach are like three just figures cloaked in shadow. The thunder hits, like really good weather, like lightning and rain. The lightning hits, and it just lights up, and they're just standing there. So scary.
Are the areas procedurally generated? Is that why it adds to the randomness? Or
yeah, the only thing it's not random is the plane crash. Obviously, it does the same thing every time. But yeah, where you start and what's around you is different every time. They just added a houseboat that you can craft. So like, that's definitely, they're going to add a lot more of like what you can build. It's really basic right now. You can build like a little shelter out of leaves, a log cabin, which I really want to make. I haven't been able to make it. You have to have like 82 logs.
Well, it's funny, the first trailer that I saw for The Forest actually sold me on it and then didn't sell me like within one shot. Mm-hmm. And it was because the trailer's great actually, because they didn't have any voiceover, they had no titles, they had nothing. Just with the gameplay, I get it. I see what you're doing. The guy's walking around the forest, he's picking up twigs, he's making stuff, he's chopping down trees, he's getting those logs, moving those logs, building walls, and then stacking those walls around a perimeter. And I was like, oh great. And then it fades to black and then cuts to a guy knocking the wall down. I'm like, well, he clearly just spent 2 hours building that wall.
It's a lot of work building shelters.
Really frustrating.
Yeah.
Seeing, as opposed to something very, very recently, finally got to see gameplay. I'm sure a lot of people have seen it before, but I hadn't seen that much gameplay of Fortnite.
Yeah.
And the building in that is like intentionally super speedy. Guys are like running along planks as they're being thrown together, whereas this is like much slower,
really
slow. More methodical. Do you think that speed will be tweaked as they move from an alpha to a beta to a launch?
I think so. It seems incredibly slow. Even the most basic shelter is just some twigs and some leaves, and even that takes so much work, and it's like temporary shelter.
Which it would, by yourself, makes sense. Based in reality, it's just that question of like, when you see people stop, it's like, okay, they made 10 hours in, and then everyone stops around that point. Like, how can we get them moving in for the long haul? I'm attracted by in a weird way. It's alpha, so it's not
Yeah.
like the prettiest looking game. It's buggy, in some ways. But there definitely seems to be like, I don't know, kind of like a bird's eye view effect on like how you move and when you run through areas. It definitely seems to make like the environment seem grander and more intense. Have you noticed that, or does that seem unusual compared to other games? Games that we've played recently, stuff like I'm trying to think of like horror games. What was the one where you have the camera? Outlast.
Outlast.
Yeah, so there's a lot of horror games that we get like on the PC.
Well, I know Oculus is heavily featured for The Forest. That was like one of the big things they wanted to focus on. So I wonder if that like messes up with the point of view when you're playing.
That there could be some PC elements you're getting even when you're not playing with Oculus that were maybe designed for it, to kind of focus on. Because I was actually getting poor Rich Brown used to work with us, had trouble with first-person shooters, and like I've thankfully never had that. And I was actually getting like a little bit dizzy just from you frantically. And I think a lot of that was because it was a horror game. So even though you're like making something, there was like like kind of spastic, like just watching my flank. But
you get to areas too that like are shut off because it's alpha. It's like you can't go here yet. Check back soon. It's like little developer messages, and there's a countdown, which I think is really cool to the next patch. Right when you boot it up, it's like countdown to next patch. Ticking down. It's like 12 days away for the next one, so you kind of know like a little rough right now. Maybe I'll check back next patch.
Do you have a fear that you'll get to a point where you understand the AI of these guys so much that when you see them in the environment, it's not like, oh, I'm being stalked, and more like, oh, yeah, it's one of those guys. Like, when you see a creeper up close, it's very scary, but when you see it at a distance, it's like, I know how to manage those guys. I know, oh, yeah, it's a spider, but it's no big deal. Is that something you think that'll maybe hurt the game? Like, those weird squid things are really creepy, but I remember seeing Rob Manuel on a stream playing the game, and they were, like, walking into walls and stuff.
The AI is a little rough for the enemies now.
And so, but I'm saying not only, like, that just ruins that one encounter that I had with them, but kind of, like, ruins it forever, where it's like, even when I see those guys at a distance or come out of the darkness, it's like, I know your limits. I know how I can work around you, so I'm not that scared.
In defense of that, I was on, like, the riverbank, and there was this big hill, right here, so my view was kind of obstructed, and I saw one guy just a little in the distance, and it was night, it was raining, it was super moody, super intense, and then he like turns and disappears. So I'm like, okay, maybe he was just a scout stalking me or whatever, and then I'm like going a little more, and then I hear something behind me, and I turn around, and this guy is walking up out of the water, just like emerges from the water. I was
like Apocalypse Now style.
Like I did not see that coming. So I think there's a lot of unpredictability to what they can do, and they can set up traps. Like they'll flank you. They try to surround you. That's their whole thing.
One last question: is this a game that you would want to invest in one playthrough, or is it just try again, try again, try again?
It's like don't starve. So it's like try again, try again. I mean, the fact that they show the guy taking your son clearly says to me that there is going to be an ending. I don't know how long that would take. I don't know.
Maybe like a year or two down the line, this will be a good speed run game where it's just like how fast can you get that kid if you know, and you're in this environment.
I bet right now in the alpha that you can't even get to the kid because like I said, there's some areas that are closed off. I saw some guy on the forums.
That's heartbreaking, man.
I want to save him.
No one can save this child?
Yeah.
I want a video. I want someone to stream this child being saved. Come on.
Some guy on the forums lasted like 100 days already. I'm just like, wow, how do you even do that?
But fun. I mean, it's fun to have these games where it's open-ended what you can achieve, like what you can build and what you can do and what's capable. So yeah, doesn't not necessarily a game where it's going to have a cool launch and then kind of fade out of obscurity. It seems like something that if you want to get involved in. Yeah. So you recommend to someone playing it now, not waiting until later and being intrigued and find more news about it, but like actually check it out now.
Yeah, if you love survival or you love horror or first person or just something a little different, yeah, check it out now. There's no harm. It's only 15. Like I said, it's a little rough right now, so I mean, I'm just gonna dabble here and there, but why not just pick it up now?
I like all those things.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking about it.
Yeah.